Dear students, this is Professor Venkatachalapathi, Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. I am going to discuss on blanking and piercing in a metal forming process. Hello students, in a manufacturing process, it is one of the most important course for a mechanical engineering, aeronautical engineering and automobile engineering, etc. In this manufacturing process, the student are supposed to be learn various important manufacturing process in order to manufacture, in order to innovate, in order to fabricate all these type of process. At least a student is to know what are the various important process are available from the past. So apart from this, in the course there are five basic units. The first unit, which consisting of a metal casting process. Second unit, which is a fabrication, that is also called as secondary process, where you need to understand the various welding techniques. And third and important unit is metal forming process. In the metal forming process, we are going to discuss subdivision of various process like what you call hot working process, cold working process, hot rolling and hot forging, etc. In that, this blanking and piercing. Do you know this blanking and piercing? One of the most important process where you need to have a real life applications like some industries. It will be useful like Coke bottles and some of the sheets where you can able to have some sheet of making of the hollow portion, etc. So as I discussed earlier, the term metal forming, the metal forming can be defined as it is the process of material can able to form by applying the heat or pressure in a required shape and size. So obviously, when you are discussing the metal forming, the amount of raw material can be completely utilized. That is, wastage of the material is minimum or negligible. Yes or no? So that is why now we can able to study some basic concept involved in the blanking process, piercing process, and what are the principle involved in the piercing, punching and blanking, and what are the advantages, limitations and applications of all this blanking and piercing process. Coming to this introduction of sheet metal. So all this blanking, piercing, punching comes under the sheet metal operations. Look at students, this is a three-dimensional figure. This figure, we can understand how the blanking and piercing or punching. Okay, this is a three-dimensional figure. You can see the green stock, metal stock, and there will be a punch. You can apply that punch. That hollow portion will come down here. So this punched out part, we will call it as a blank. Making a hollow portion is a punch or piercing. This is the only clarification of this blanking and piercing. But even though it is a simple topic, a lot of important points to be understand, and it can be useful for making a components in a variety of applications. Yes or no? So look at this. What is meant by sheet metal operation? So in general, a sheet is a plate. A sheet is a plate with the thickness is less than 5 mm. This is very important. Okay, a sheet is a plate the less than 5 mm thickness. All this comes under the sheet metal operations, which are performed over metal sheet when the length and width is very large compared to the thickness. That is what. But thickness always less than 5 mm. That width and length should be very large compared to the thickness. That is the one basic introduction of the sheet metal operation. And the second interesting thing is the basic cutting operations. So whenever you wanted to cut a sheet, or when you wanted to fold a sheet, or when you wanted to remove the sheet in a certain dimensions, obviously the basic cutting operations which comes under the best sheet metal operations, which are most widely named as a punching operation, blanking operation. This is what here, how you can clearly understand with the example of three-dimensional sketch. So look at, there will be this, you can see it is a table, and above that the stock or some workpiece or sheet or plate. So this is a rectangular plate can be kept above the table, and here this is called a punch. So punch, when you apply the punch, what are the diameter shape of the circular shape we can apply here, and it will enter up to that thickness, and that part come out from that what you call sheet or plate. Yes or no? So here that punched out part we will call it as a blank, and making a hollow portion we will call it as a piercing or punching process. This is the only basic difference between a punching and blanking operation. So with this diagram, even a layman also can understand clearly the basic difference between a blanking and piercing. And now let us see the how it will work and what are the different type of applications to be used in blanking and piercing. Okay. Now coming to this, both punching and blanking operations are the process where the punch and die combination will be used as a tools. So here that is where punch it act as a tool, where in the case of die, so if a hollow portion, what are the different shape of the die can be used to. If we are using circular cylinder, suppose if you use a pentagonal prism, that pentagonal shape only can be obtained like this shape. So if it is a hexagonal shape is there, hexagonal punch can be obtained. Okay, so like that, you need to understand both the punching and blanking operations are the combination of punch and die, where you can use the tools, that only will describe this importance of the blanking, piercing and punching. So this is what about the basic introduction about the sheet metal operation. Okay, I hope the student can understand clearly. Even all this information can be collected, the sheet metal study notes for mechanical engineering, some of the universities, some deemed universities, they have verified a lot of journals, and I have also collected some information as per these references. Look at what is the concept which is involved in the blanking and punching process. So this a line diagram clearly understand that how you can able to perform, how you can able to do this punching and blanking setup. Okay, so first of all you can see the from this figure, so there will be a die. Yes or no? So above the die, there will be one plate, and this sectional is called the sheet or a plate. So this is called punch. When you apply that punch, the diameter, how it can able to have this shape can be come out from this small opening called the die, so that shape can be obtained. So here this is a general setup. Whenever when you wanted to do some operation, so there is a two dies can be kept vertically, and above that one sheet, and above one punch. Either it may be straight, means a straight rectangle or square may cut it. If it is a V shape, we will get some V shape, and if it is a hexagonal shape, some hexagonal part may be come out from the stock. So the main concept for a blanking and punching or piercing, let it be, the piercing is a process. So that is what piercing is a process. For example, if you see one sheet is there, you wanted to make a series of holes. You wanted to make a series of holes. That process we will call it as a piercing. The piercing is the process of a cutting of small circular cylinder holes. Circular cylinder holes in a sheet metal, whilst removing very little quantity of the material. So it is a big sheet. How you can able to remove this? In this case, that process we will call it as a piercing process or punching process, and this is done by using bullet shaped punch or some circular shaped punch during the punch and die operation. So this is a concept involved in this blanking and punching. So in general, this you can see the here this part, punched out part, we'll call it as a blank. This is also called blank. Okay, And if you take this is a punctured part, we'll call it as a blank, making the hollow portion. This hollow portion is the workpiece, we'll call it as a piercing or punching operation, and this blank will be workpiece, it is as a blanking operation. Okay, so that is the only a minute difference between a blanking and piercing or punching operation. So whenever when you wanted to have a some circle, even you can see the that Coke bottle opening of that uh, that top level removal of the strip, which is used. This process is called blanking and punching process only. So this is what about the a fundamental definition of blanking and piercing. This is a setup how you can make the punching and blanking operation setup. Means first you can keep the two dice at a distance, and above that you can keep the one sheet may be either minimum thickness of less than 5 mm, 1 mm, 2 mm based on our application. And apart from that, you can able to put some punch. Punch acts as a tool. So whenever you can apply the tool with any different type of process, either a simple mechanical press or screw press or some important type of hydraulic press also can be used. So when you apply the force or pressure, that exact stock can be removed by the application. It comes under the cold working process because the metal cannot be heated here. Only just by punching only we will separate the part from the sheet. Okay, so like this, making a small holes, we will call it as a piercing process, and where you can able to have this holes can be a workpiece, remaining this and all scrap. Okay, similarly, if it is a punched out part, this is a workpiece, and the remaining part is a scrap. So remaining this will be the workpiece, and the remaining part will be the scrap for the blanking operation. That is the only difference between a blanking and punching. Okay. Now let us see the how the principle involved in the punching, and this how we can able to do some setup for the doing this punching or piercing operation. So look at the punching operation. The term punching operation, when the force is applied, by using a punch, this is called the punch. Uh, this is the called by applying blanking force. So when you wanted to make it this blanked part, you should apply some blanked force, and here there will be a guide plate to support, cannot move in some disturbances, and also you can able to put some holding forces at the both side in order to have a good support, and there will be impingement. So in this case, and this is called the sheet metal. So you can see this small thickness, this is called the sheet metal. So whenever can you apply the blanking force in a punch, obviously that shape can be removed from separately. That process will call it as a punching process, or if it is circular holes, piercing process. Making a holes means it is a piercing process. And whenever by applying the blanking force, it will be counter force also will be acted on that, so that some clearance may be obtained at the ends. Some clearance, that clearance can be removed by some cutters and some extra machining process also. It will be negligible amount of clearance, some flash like that it will come. Okay, so this is what about the fundamental principle of punching process. Look at the definition of a punching operation. So when the force is applied, by using punch on the sheet, the cutting or shearing action will be takes place. Cutting means separation of the part. Even shearing, shearing one plate over the other, it will be shear, so that that sharp, with that sharp measure it will be cut or remove the part. Okay, so by producing a blank, leaving a hole on a sheet, so that is what the punching operation is, making a hole. So these also call it as a piercing process. You can call it as both either punching or piercing. Both are similar only, but strictly speaking, the piercing is the making of the holes, but punching means removing the stock from a sheet or plate. So in punch and die working, listen carefully. In a punch and die working, these are the two dies and there is a punch. So if the hole is produced in the sheet is useful, it is called a punching or piercing operation. Suppose if the cutting or shearing action is taking place on the sheet, the punch size is always less than the die size. Obviously, this punch size is always less than the die size. Otherwise, it cannot move now. It cannot enter. So always the die size is more than the punch. Okay, or punch is less than this die. So then only we can enter inside that sheet. The part can be separated. And another interesting point is in a punching operation, punch size is made is equal to hole size. That punch, what are the this is used to a hole size. Obviously, the clearance is provided on the die. So clearance only can be provided on the die. So it is in opposite. When you wanted to perform a blanking, it will be vice versa. Okay, their clearance will be provided on punch. That is the only difference. Look at punch size always. Punch size is always less than the die size. That is called basic requirement. If the punch size is obviously which is equal to the hole size. This is needed. And where you can apply clearance can be applied on the die and shear is on punch. This is the only concept involved in the punching process. Similarly, when you wanted to have a principle of blanking means just opposite punched out part, that part to come out of that part is called the blanking, and where you can need to provide the clearance on the punch only, not die. Okay, let us see these are some of the important advantages and some of the important advantages and uses or merits of this blanking and piercing process. Every machines are very accurate and its shapes can be formed neatly. So when you wanted to have an exact dimension, so for example 10 mm diameter or 15 mm diameter or 30 mm, whatever the diameter is required, based on the diameter you can prepare a punch. Okay, whenever you can apply that punch, almost all punch size is less than the die size. Then only the punch will enter through that die. Then only the required shape can be formed. Okay, you can see you can clearly understand there will be a sheet metal piece. This is a sheet metal. This is the punch. When you apply that whatever the circular portion will come out, this is called the blank. But here we are providing some holes. That holes we will call it as a piercing or punching. This is the only difference between a punching or blanking, or we can also call the piercing and blanking. So in clear, still you need to understand very clearly. So for example, there will be a sheet. So in the sheet, here we are making, this is a 2D diagram, this is the 3D diagram. This is 2D. Okay, 2D means when you see from the top, making a series of holes. This is the hole 1, hole 2, hole 3 and hole 4. This first you can see when you wanted to discuss in the blanking operation, that punched out part, we'll call it as a blank. That is the workpiece. The remaining thing and all scrap. Suppose if it is a piercing or punching means, this making the hollow portion is the workpiece. This hollow portion is workpiece and remaining is this scrap. That is called the punching operation. This is what about the importance of the punching and blanking, and all machines are very accurate and different type of shapes also can be formed neatly, so that here whatever it cannot be bent. We can keep the parallelly and you have to support some you have to add some support some blanking forces like this. You can see cooling forces also kept at the middle, so that there is no vibrational changes, there is no movement of the sheet. You can see first there will be one die. Above that they will put stock or plate, and above that one supporting is impingement of that stinger, that is called the above the supporting sheet, and then you should apply that blank force in the punch, and there will be two holding forces will be kept in order to stable of the sheet. This is what about the advantages, and whatever the taking of hollow shapes and all, we can able to prefer the punching or piercing process. Okay. Now let us see this is the what is the another interesting one is the what is the basic difference between a piercing and blanking. So the student can understand clearly whatever you can say that when how you can able to punching means making a hollow portions, blanking means punched out part is the workpiece. Okay, punched out part we will call it as a blank. So you can see in this diagram clearly understand what is blanking and what is piercing. So first part you can see that this is the first. In a blanking, what you will see the in a sheet workpiece is this punched out part. So this is called workpiece. This and all scrap. Yes or no? So this punched out this part separately it will come out. That is why this is workpiece, and remaining all the things is a scrap. When you are speaking about the piercing or punching, this is called workpiece is this total sheet is working because making the holes. This punched out part that is scrap. I hope it is clear. In a piercing, making the hollows. Hollows means first you can put that will is the waste or scrap, and this is the total workpiece. But in the case of blanking, this punched out part only workpiece, the remaining all this thing is a scrap. That is the only difference between a blanking and piercing process. Even in any examination, you can able to explain clearly how you can able to describe the difference between the blanking and piercing operation. And let us see some important points to be discussed in this case. First, piercing is used to create holes in a raw material by piercing it with a tool. So that is what, for example, if you see, if you apply, this is a sharp metal, if you apply, there will be a hole will come. Okay, yes or no? Like the sheet will be there, it should be less than 5 mm thickness. Okay, when you wanted to perform a piercing operation, obviously you should make a holes to create a holes in the raw material is having the 2 mm or 3 mm or less than 5 mm thickness of the sheet. And similarly, punching uses the machine to create metal objects in a specific shapes, not only a circular shape. Suppose, for example, it should be some rhombus shape, that shape of the punch can be required. Suppose if it is a hexagonal shape, you can able to obtain some hexagonal punch. Suppose if it is a some pentagonal shape, okay, whatever the shape, so the 3D diagram. So if it is a hexagonal shape means like that, this is the punch. So when you wanted to have this type of punch can be required. So this punch can be provided here. Obviously, the shape instead of circular, that hexagonal shape can be obtained. So that is why whatever shape wanted to create, that type of punch should be or die should be used so that that required shape of the hole can be obtained. And finally, blanking means it is a machining process that is used to create small pieces of the metal. That is what you can see. Blanking means like these pieces only can able to get. This is a work pieces. But piercing means making the series of the holes. Okay, even in any sheet like that holes also can be able to obtain. So not only circular holes like this. Okay, these are the making of the hexagonal holes. That is also we will call it as a piercing process or punching process. So I hope this is the basic important distinction between the piercing and punching. Most probably in the industries like beverage industries and some sheet metal industries also widely used in this piercing and blanking operation. Okay, and even for all this piercing and blanking, not only advantages, some limitations also will be there. So what are the disadvantages and limits? So suppose if you wanted to make a large sized hole, so it is difficult to do. We can do, but that preparation of that punch, large size punch, it will need to pay some lot of cost, and that type of press, even to have a high tonnage press is also required. Automatically, the cost can be increased a lot. So that is why a simple shaped holes can be easily performed by piercing or punching process. When you wanted to have a large size holes and all, it is somewhat costlier process. We have not preferred such type of things. Okay, and that is the only disadvantages. Now coming to these applications. So look at these are the molds. Anything, any product, okay, any complicated shapes or any simple shape, any channel, we different type of things and all. First, we had to do some molds. These are the molds. So inside, what are the shape of the thing is there? That same shape can be come out. So let us see the application. Even these molds also, we are having the 4 different holes. Look at how many holes are there. So this is the 1 diameter holes, this is another diameter hole, this is the another small diameter holes. And in this mold you can see there will be some section, crash section also will be there. So how we can able to make this, all these things comes under this blanking and piercing operation. So look at how the application can be most preferred in blanking and piercing operation is blanking and piercing are the shearing process. Blanking and piercing are the shearing process in which punch and die are used to produce the parts from a coil or sheet stock. This is very interesting. If you take any sheet or stock having the thickness, even more thickness also, how we are able to produce the some coil shape and circular and different rectangular shape of holes. So this is a some channel means rectangular shape, is circular shape, it is a less diameter, nominal diameter. That type of thing can be easily done by this blanking and piercing operation. And another thing is blanking produces. Look at blanking produces outside features of the component. It is interesting. Blanking always produces outside features of the component, whereas piercing produces internal holes and shapes. This is what very interesting. Look at blanking and piercing. Blanking always this is always outside features of the component. Outside features of the component. This is inside. Piercing or punching is a inside making of a circular holes or hexagonal holes or pentagonal holes or square holes. Any type of sheet can be obtained by this blanking process, and piercing is making of the holes in a series. Okay, so this is what the important application for using the blanking and piercing. You can see how many holes. So this is a one different shape, and here so here in below also some channel shape also will be there. So all these type of applications mostly preferred blanking and piercing operation only. This is what about the interesting aspect of the this blanking and piercing of the sheet metal. Okay, so I hope the students can understand clearly about the importance of the sheet metal operation. The one of the most important thing is the piercing and blanking. So even this type sometimes they may ask the some simple problems also. Okay, so they may give the diameter, they may give the some dimensional changes. So how you can able to provide, where you can add, where you can delete. That is what you can see the in this case punch size. Here obviously whenever the punch size is always less than the die size, and when you wanted to punch size equal to hole size, that is needed, where you can provide clearance. That type of question they may ask any problems. So suppose in the punching operation always clearance should be provided on the die. In a blanking operation clearance can be provided on the punch. That is the only important points while solving the problems. Okay, so I hope all the students can understand clearly about the blanking and piercing operation. This is very useful for the in examinations point of view, even competitive examinations also. They may ask some objective point of questions also. So even for external exam, semester examination, you need to draw some line diagram so that you will get some good marks. Okay, I hope it is clear understanding of the sheet metal operation in that blanking and piercing. All I have discussed its advantages, limitations, and applications. Okay, okay, good guy. Next time, next class, we will discuss some more topic. Okay, thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.